Hello and welcome to Lychee Slicer. This is the free version. You can get Pro. It has some really helpful features, but it's not necessary for printing your own models. So today I'm going to go over printing settings, support settings, and a quick overview on how I learned to use supports to do my own supports because pre-supports weren't working on this model. So if you go to the top left, open up 3D printer. I've already got mine in here and it should bring it up when you first install it anyway. But if you click on add, you've got resin printer, filament printer, and then you can search in the search bar, or you can go down and click on the one that you're using. So I'm using Elegoo, and then it has all these pictures so you can see what yours looks like. So it's just quicker. And then if we go to the resin, so by default it goes on the default one, but you can add new resin. So two for bits of your printer, and then you select your resin. So mine is Elegoo, and then it's water washable, and then it's ceramic grey. And then it'll show you all the profiles that the community have created. So you can filter it how you want, but I've got like the most users have used it. So just click on that one, and this will be like the base. You'll still have to make edits to it. So you just add one selected profile, but I've already got mine added and customized. So if I go into edit, I'll go through all the information on here. So the first thing to note on this screen is that I'm using two-stage motion control. This means that basically the lift distance and retract distance is separated into two different parts at two different speeds. But we'll start at the top and work our way down. So in the burn-in layers, the number of layers is how many layers it's going to use for burn-in to stick to the build plate better. Exposure time, mine's a bit high. It's supposed to be 10 times your normal exposure time, but I had problems with my resin sticking to the FEP rather than the build plate. The easiest way to fix this is increase exposure time, but it still wasn't working properly. So I'm working my way back down. Transition layers count. Basically, the way this works is it goes between the exposure time of the burn-in layers to the normal layers. So it does it in increments rather than just going straight from 35 down to 2.3, just so that there's not so much a discrepancy in the brittleness of the layers. Now, I put mine to 0 because I was doing the print test for the exposure test. So I'll put that back up because it's a really nice thing to have. 6 is what I usually use. So then we have a lift distance. This is pretty simple. Basically, it moves up 4 millimeters, and this would be at 60, and then it'll move up another 4 millimeters at 150 millimeters per minute. You can change this, but 8 millimeters is usually enough to make sure that the resin has moved away from the FEP enough. So the way that the lift distance and retract distance work is they're in reverse of each other. So obviously you want it to retract the same amount as you want it to lift, but if you like to have these the other way around, so like you'd have 60 60 then 150 150, rather than the way that I've got it, it would basically be it would lift slowly and then move faster when it's lifted away from the FEP a little bit, and then it would move slowly back down and then smash into the FEP and move all the resin around really quickly. You don't want that. Light intensity, it's basically how bright the light is. There's no real need to edit this. So then we come to the normal layers. Layer thickness, this is the thickness of the layers for like your model. People do go below 0.05 millimeters, like 0.03 is quite common, but 0.05 is honestly good enough for the detail that you need for a miniature. So next is exposure time. This is pretty simply the amount of time that it exposes the resin. Mine's at 2.3, which is perfect for my printing in my environment. It'll be different for everyone. So if you've got a mono LCD, you want to change this by 0.5 seconds every time you're trying to get like closer to your perfect. If it's normal LCD, you'll be wanting to do it by like a second increment every time. Lift distance and retract distance and lift speed and retract speed exactly the same as in the burn-in layers, doesn't really need to be changed. Now, as for the wait before print, this is basically when the build plate comes back down, wait a second just so that the resin can settle before it starts like turning on the LCD. After print and after lift, pretty pointless in my opinion. You can turn them on if you want, it's just going to take you time, make it last longer for your actual full print. And light intensity, again, exactly the same And then we've got scene scale compensation. So basically you can change your scale as needed. Not really important. Normal compensation, not sure what this is. It's a pro feature. So then you've got your price, you've got your bottle price, your capacity, and then you've got your currency. You can set your currency to wherever you're at. And then you've got print time override. This is pretty pointless because you can just set the stuff up in the top and then just press OK to save it. I don't need to do any changes here. So once that's all set up, in the main screen you've got a few options down in the bottom. It shows you the information. You can estimate your 3D printing time and the amount of resin that's going to be used. So here on the left I have the pre-supported model that kept failing for me, and then on the right I've got the model that I'm going to be doing the supports on, same model. So first things first, I rotated it 50 degrees on the x-axis and 20 degrees on the y-axis. This is just so that it's got like the best angle for printing. So then you go on here, click magic on medium, turn off everything but the raft. I mean, you can do auto orientation if you want, but it's not really necessary. And then press I'm feeling lucky and it'll just give you a raft to start off with. And then if we go into prepare, then we've got the cone settings. So so you've got your supports here, so you've got multiple options. You've got the cone as free, the other two are pro, so there's no real need to worry about that. So you've got medium, light, heavy supports. These are the presets. Well, this is my presets. I got them from the Table Flip Foundry. So if we start on the light, you've got tip diameter of 0.22 millimeters, tip length of 2 millimeters, and diameter of 0.8 millimeters. Now on the medium, it's 0.28 tip diameter, 2 millimeters length, and 1 millimeter on diameter. And then heavies are diameter 1.2 millimeter, tip length 2 millimeter, and tip diameter 0.4 millimeter. Now, so then to change these, you just edit the values, just type in different values, and then what it's going to do, so this is editing the heavy at first, but once I put this down to 0.3, it's going to say it's a light. Now, this is fine because what you do is go into custom and then override preset heavy, and then it'll put it back to being a heavy. It's just saying light because the diameter, basically. But I'm not going to save that because I've already got my settings set. Also, do remember to write these down somewhere because there's no... it's cloud saved, so it could lose it accidentally. So now what we want to do is we want to find the first point that appears on the model because this is where all the weight's going to be. So what you want to do is you want to put one heavy right on the tip. If you press F, you'll focus on it, which will make it easier for you. And then if you just bear with me because it's not working properly, it's not setting it. And there we go. I'm not sure what that bug was. So if we just try and get it right on the tip there, and then whenever we put a heavy, we want two mediums to help support it. Also, yeah, that's something. So don't change the type of support it is until you've placed your next support. So if you're wanting a medium, you put a heavy, then you click medium, it'll change the one that you've got selected. So try and get a medium on this side as well, just to help with the supports. Now, one thing that I had with mine is it failed only on this bit, like the bit that slots into the base. So I'll just go along putting, you want to put a lot more supports here. Now, you can, because these aren't going to be holding as much as the weight as the tip, you could join these together if you just hold Alt and then click onto a pre-existing support, but I think just to make sure that it prints off properly, you just want to go along, try and run along that edge where it's right next to the build plate, and basically just continue up this. It'll take a little while, but it's less likely to fail. If your placement isn't quite right, you can just click right on the tip and move it to where it needs to be, but that will only move the top, so remember to click on the bottom and move it across as well, just so that it's straight down. Now, you've got to remember to go from the bottom, because I just tried to move it from the top and it didn't work, so you just move it until it looks about right. It doesn't need to be perfect as long as it's pretty much straight. So then you go over here, islands, click search selected, and then it'll find all the islands on your model and put supports to them if you press add supports to the islands. Now what you want to do on all of these islands, or what I was recommended to do, is you want to put a trident basically. So what you do is, it also depends on how much weight it's bearing as well, so when it's not like connected to the main of the model. Now it depends on how much there is before it joins the main model as well. So here I'm not going to put a trident, but if you want to, you can. I just don't think it's necessary, so I won't right now. However, this one's got a bit more, like, so there's this bit here, so I'll just put one there, but I'm not going to connect it up onto the other one. Now this is kind of personal preference, so I mean, it's not really needed, it's not that much more weight, so what you can do is just delete this, and then if you press Alt and click where you want it, just make sure it's on that little point again, and then we can put it onto the existing support there. So then we can basically keep on going like this. But so just jumping over to Toolbox to show off the sliced file of what I printed before, as I showed in the last video. But unfortunately I didn't save the STL, I just saved the sliced file. So here, this is exactly what I had. There's not that many supports, but it still succeeded. So it's basically just making sure you've got the heavy at the right place, and then you've got your tridents on any islands. By all means, you can join up multiple islands onto the same one. Just obviously make sure that it's not bearing too much weight from the main model. So then if we just jump back into the slicer, so this pre-supported one is a case of it failed multiple times on my settings. It'll work for others, but I mean, all I really needed to do was put more heavy supports at the base, but I didn't understand this until I went through learning my own supports. Doing your own supports is going to save you so much time in the long run. It'll take like 20 minutes for a model at this size, but you're more likely to have successes rather than failures, so I definitely advise it. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.